I never should have brought him down that mountain. I have spent 40 years hiking the Appalachian Trail. I know the sections near the Smoky Mountains better than the back of my hand. It was late October and the air was already biting cold. The sun had dipped below the ridgeline an hour ago. A thick gray fog was rolling in from the valley floor. Visibility was dropping to less than 10 feet. I was moving fast to get back to the trailhead before true dark. That is when I saw him. He was standing perfectly still in the middle of a switchback. He was facing away from the trail. He was staring directly into the dense brush. He wore a thin blue windbreaker and jeans. He had no backpack. He had no water bottle. He had no flashlight. I stopped about 20 feet away from him. My boots crunched loud on the gravel. He did not flinch. He did not turn around. I cleared my throat to get his attention. He stayed frozen like a statue. I walked a few steps closer and spoke up, asked if he was okay. The man turned his head very slowly. His movements were stiff. It looked like his neck was rusted gears grinding together. He looked at me with wide eyes. His pupils were blown out huge and black. His skin was pale and looked waxy. He looked completely disoriented. He looked like he had no idea where he was. I assumed he was a day hiker who got turned around. I assumed he had underestimated the trail and the cold. I stepped closer to check for injuries. He smelled strange. It was not the smell of sweat or dirt. It smelled like copper and wet dog. I asked him his name. He just stared at my mouth. He did not speak. I asked him if he was alone. He gave a tiny nod. I looked at his shoes. They were clean white sneakers. They had no mud on them. That was impossible. The trail had been muddy for 5 miles. I tried to ignore that detail. My gut told me to leave him there. My gut told me to run. But I could not leave a man to freeze in the dark. I decided to guide him down. I did not want to call the Rangers. If I called them, he would get fined for being unprepared. I thought I was doing him a favor. I told him to follow me. I told him to stay close. I turned my back to him and started walking. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I could not hear his footsteps. I was wearing heavy boots. He was wearing sneakers, but he should have made some sound. I stopped and looked back. He was right there. He was 3 feet behind me. He was staring at the back of my head. I had not heard him move a single inch. I forced a smile and kept walking. The fog was getting thicker. My flashlight beam was just a white wall in front of me. I had to rely on memory to find the path. I could feel him behind me. It felt like cold air pushing against my back. I started walking faster. I wanted to get this over with. I wanted to get him to the parking lot and drive away. I heard a sound from behind me. It was a soft clicking noise. It sounded like a tongue clicking against the roof of a mouth. I stopped and shone my light back. He was standing there with his mouth slightly open. He was not breathing heavy. He was not sweating. He looked perfectly calm. I asked if he said something. He slowly shook his head. I turned back around and kept moving. The clicking started again. Click, click, click. It matched the rhythm of my own footsteps. I tried to walk out of sync. The clicking changed to match me perfectly. My heart started hammering in my chest.
I knew something was wrong with him. This was not just shock. This was not just hypothermia. We entered a section of the trail with heavy tree cover. It was pitch black under the canopy. My light caught the eyes of a deer in the woods. The deer did not run. It was lying on its side. It looked dead, but its eyes were open. We walked past it. I heard the man behind me stop. I did not turn around this time. I heard a wet, tearing sound. It was quick and violent. Then I heard him running to catch up to me. He stopped right at my heels again. I kept my eyes forward. I was terrified to look at him. I gripped my hiking pole tight. I told myself we were almost there, just 2 more miles. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. My breath was coming out in heavy white clouds. I could not hear him breathing at all. I tried to make small talk to break the silence. I asked where he was from. He did not answer. I asked where his car was parked. He did not answer. I asked if he had family waiting. He let out a low hum. It was a vibration that I felt in my chest. It was not a human sound. It sounded like wind blowing through a hollow cave. I started to jog. The trail was rocky and dangerous to run on. I did not care. I needed to get to the lights of the trailhead. I heard him running behind me. His feet finally made a sound, but it was not the slap of sneakers. It sounded heavy and hard. It sounded like hooves hitting the stone. I swung my light back in panic. He was 10 feet back. He was running on 2 legs, but his knees were bending the wrong way. He snapped back to a normal run as the light hit him. My brain tried to reject what I saw. I told myself it was the shadows. I told myself it was the panic. I turned and sprinted. I risked breaking my ankle. I scrambled down a rocky decline. I could see the yellow gate of the parking area. I could see the street lamp. I felt a cold hand brush my shoulder. I screamed and lunged forward. I burst out of the tree line. I stumbled onto the pavement of the parking lot. I fell to my knees under the street lamp. I gasped for air. I spun around to face the woods. The man was standing at the edge of the darkness. He was just outside the ring of light. The fog swirled around his legs. He looked completely normal again. His knees were straight. His face was blank. He did not step onto the pavement. He stood there watching me. I waited for him to come into the light. I waited for him to ask for a ride. He tilted his head to the side. It tilted too far. His ear touched his shoulder. Then it kept going. His neck stretched like warm taffy. His head hung upside down on his chest. He smiled at me. His mouth opened too wide. There were too many teeth. They were sharp and gray. He raised one hand and waved. His fingers were long and jointless. He did not want to be saved. He did not want to leave the woods. He stepped backward into the shadows. He vanished into the fog instantly. I got into my truck and locked the doors. I drove until I hit the main highway. I did not go home that night. I drove to a motel 2 towns over. I sat on the bed with the lights on. I tried to understand what happened. The next morning I checked the news. I wanted to see if anyone was missing. I found an article from 3 days ago. A hiker had been found dead in that area. He had fallen from a ridge. They had recovered the body. They showed a picture of the man. It was him. It was the man in the blue windbreaker. But that wasn't the worst part.
The article said the body was found heavily scavenged. It said something had eaten the soft parts. It said the heart and the eyes were missing. I looked at my hiking jacket. There was a stain on the back shoulder. It was where he touched me. It was a smear of wet gray clay. I washed the jacket 3 times. The stain never came out. I burned the jacket in my backyard. I haven't been back to the trail since. Sometimes when it is foggy, I hear clicking outside my window. I know he is not lost. He knows exactly where I am.